Thanks guys. So it's probably best to start without an expert because you've got a lot of experts to follow. So I thought I might start today and just set the scene, of where pears are today, both domestically and internationally. And talk a little bit about, I've talked a little bit about exports. I struggled to find a new logo for the new Department of Agriculture and Transport and whatever it's going to be, but I'm sure it's coming. Let's see if I can move to the second slide here. What are we going to do?
We're suggesting DFE, actually, John.
Yeah?
Department for everything.
Then I change slides. No, this is not getting.
There's just left click.
Left click? Okay, thanks. One of the things I'd like to talk a little bit about is quality, and I think a lot of the discussion today is going to be about quality. I've just come over from Bolzano, where I've had 80 of my licensees in Pink Lady from around the world sitting down, and the topic we talked about was quality. It's our biggest issue around the world. I think it's the biggest issue with pears and pears exports. But interesting quote from Henry Ford. Quality means doing it right when no one's looking. It's not, and it's something you've got to just be part of nature, part of everything you do day to day. So moving to 3, just a quick background on where pears are grown in Australia. As you can see, Victoria is the primary state for pears, and if you go over to the table on the right, you'll see Golden Valley is obviously 85% of the total pear production in Australia. A significant chunk in other states. Just a quick rundown on from the levy data of pear production over the last 10 years. More importantly, breaking it down between fresh, export, processing and juicing. The good thing is that the fresh line is growing, so we're seeing a substantial, slow increase in pear production. Just lost my laptop. Just a breakdown, domestic consumption is 53.99, juicing 41.5, processing 0.33, about just over 4% in exports. Just a quick look at per capita consumption. I've got 2 figures here. We've always worked on the ABS data because we didn't have access to the levy data. So they run almost in parallel, but the bottom line it shows a gradual increase in pear consumption per head per annum, which is good to see. It probably suggestions that the existing campaign looking at complements to desserts and is starting to work. Just a little bit of background. The core growing obviously is here in the Golden Valley. Here's just a varietal mix from 2001 through to 2013 showing Packhams basically holding their own. Start to increase in Williams, and we're starting to see that Williams fall off as trees are pulled out of the ground with SPC taking less and less of the crop, the other varieties maintaining their stability. What we haven't seen is the start of a lot of the new varieties that are coming into the market. Quite a number have been planted here in the Golden Valley. And just to help people in doing that, this month's edition of the Australia Fruit Grower will show all the new pear varieties that are available. Some of them are in commercialisation stage, but a number of them you'll be familiar with. And we've broken down the variety, the brand, the breeder, who the licensee is, harvest date, the origin, the appearance, a little bit of a growing characteristic, etc. It's just to help you if you're thinking about planting new pears in the future, what are the choices, what are the ranges, what's available. Just background on the domestic market. A lot of people make the assumption that Coles and Woolies, the 2 major supermarkets in this country, control about 75% of the fresh produce that's sold. In fact, it's substantially smaller than that. Woolworths sits at just under 30%, and Coles sits at just over 20%. So about 50% of the pear fresh produce goes through the major supermarkets. On volume, on value, it's a little bit higher, so we get to about 53%. What's important here is we should never forget the role of the greengrocers and the wholesale markets. It's still a very, very important part of the market for us. What is interesting is that bottom 3rd line from the bottom, Aldi. Year on year, Aldi's just slowly creeping up, taking a bigger share of the market, and unfortunately they've got a discount mentality. This year, particularly in apples, they came out and went basically for a tender. Cheapest buyer, cheapest seller gets in. quality was secondary. And the interesting thing, in the last 6 months, Aldi's share has taken a huge dive. So there's been a major customer reaction to poor quality fruit. They've actually lost about 3 percentage points. So hopefully they've learnt that lesson and they won't do the same next year. Exports, this has been a good year for exports. In the 10 months from January through to October, we've had 6,374 tonnes exported, about $10.5 million in value. And if you have a look at the markets, there's been a 25% increase in the exports to New Zealand, 19% increase in the exports to Indonesia, and substantial increases in Singapore and Thailand, but off a fairly small base. So good to see that that's happening. So the challenges for us is, despite a strong push on exports over recent years, cheaper southern hemisphere fruit, strong domestic prices, high Australian dollars, have basically kept exports at around 4 to 5% of domestic fresh production. In 2000, for example, we had 20,000 tonnes of pear exports. This year we're going to be lucky to get to 7,000, so we've still got some way to go to get back up to where we were. The important thing also to remember, that the more production you get off the Australian market, the higher the price you'll get for Australian produce. So even if you're not quite getting the same amount of money for your exports, you'll pick that up on the balance of the 90% that isn't exported here in Australia. But an important part of our program. Obviously the key thing for us is finding exports, is finding that unique selling point that Australian pears have got. That we've got a safety rating higher than, if you go to China and you ask country by country which has the highest food safety rating, Australia is up here and New Zealand's down here. Because New Zealand was the home of the melamine milk scandal, and it's had 3 or 4 other major scandals, so we've got to trade on that. But to do that, we've got to make sure that our quality is up there to match that. So our objective at APAL is that over the next 5 years, we want to see pear exports at 10% of fresh production. So that effectively means a doubling of the pear exports that we've got at the moment. So on that note, I'll leave you with a team of experts to prepare to deliver quality pears.